This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by Natural Order Supply, a company founded back in 2015 by expert cannabis growers and hemp cultivators located right in Grand Junction, Colorado. Natural Order Supply is your one-stop shop for all the things you need to grow quality, legal, industrial hemp. Find out how they can make your life easier and your month more profitable by opening up naturalordersupply.com. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Tuesday, August 18th, 2020, and you're tuned in to episode 967 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Kyle Yeager over Marijuana Moments starts the day's news off with the first of his three headlines on the day. Up first is news of a group of Democratic state treasurers who are increasing their call for the federal government to pass legislation protecting the rights of legal cannabis businesses to engage in regular business banking. This very, very long-running storyline revolves around federal laws blocking banks and credit unions from working with state legal cannabis businesses. Last month, a bipartisan group of 15 state and territory treasurers sent a letter to congressional leaders urging that bank reforms be included in coronavirus relief legislation. Since then, a number of Republican lawmakers, including Vice President Mike Pence, have criticized the proposals, desperate to distract from their own criminal ineptitude. Kyle spoke with California State Treasurer Fiona Ma, who said in support of banking reform, quote, "This is a simple but important step that could make our communities safer and provide a much needed influx of cash for California's banks and credit unions," unquote. Given the GOP's steely lockdown of the Senate, I would not expect anything to actually come about because of this, but it's important to keep the pressure up and public. Kyle's story has more here if you need it. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com. A new study out of California suggests that locally imposed bans on legal marijuana businesses are having the net effect of boosting the illicit market and depressing legal sales, which results in less tax revenue for towns and cities. While that sounds commonsensical enough, it's always nice to have the data to back it up. The report was commissioned by the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce and the online listing site Weed Maps and looked at the approximately 75% of California municipalities that have banned cannabis. As the report figures, California per capita cannabis sales are just $51 and change compared to Colorado's $244, Oregon's $160, and Washington's $140. The other state that has a per capita sales figure close to California is Massachusetts, which is generally known for having one of the more restrictive adult use markets in the nation, and a young one at that, at least compared to California. This storyline is a good one to keep in your toolbox, given that local control is something we see in all sorts of other states. Another good one to read in full, as it's packed with more good numbers. We jump to my home state of Maine for our final top story today, as a federal judge just ruled against the city of Portland, where I also live, in a case involving the city's attempts to favor locals in handing out adult use marijuana business licenses. You might remember that the state of Maine had originally tried to limit license holders to citizens of Maine, but pulled back from that after legal challenges were raised by multi-state operator Acreage Holdings, which owns the Maine dispensary chain Wellness Connection. It was Acreage that also sued Portland over the point-based system it hoped to use that gave special treatment to licensed applicants living in Portland. Maine state officials recently announced that October 9th would be the start date for the state's adult use program, with licenses to be handed out in just a few weeks on September 8th. With this new decision by U.S. District Judge Nancy Torrenson against Portland, it's likely that the city won't be able to get their licensing house in order for that date, so we should expect to see Portland adult use stores lag in opening. Those are the top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz it in headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Natural Order Supply, a company founded back in 2015 by expert cannabis growers and hemp cultivators located right in Grand Junction, Colorado. They've worked with hundreds of hemp farms over the years and can help you with everything from full facility buildouts to just getting all the supplies you need on a week-to-week and month-to-month basis to grow quality industrial hemp. Being a hemp farmer is hard enough as it is. Why not make your day easier and your month more profitable by working with a company like Natural Order Supply? Pop over to their website at naturalordersupply.com today and check out all the different ways they can help you. Don't delay. Just open up naturalordersupply.com today. Big thanks to everyone at Natural Order Supply for the support that helps us keep our news lights running. All right, time for the Blitz. A new petition to the U.S. Supreme Court was just accepted last week that challenges the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration on how cannabis is classified by the federal government. The challenge was lodged by a group of medical marijuana activists and claims that keeping cannabis illegal is unconstitutional. As with any case involving constitutional law, there's a lot to unpack here in terms of background and detail, so maybe another one you might want to add to your list of stories to dive into fully. My friend Matt Carnes, one of the industry's smarter financial analysts, wrote a great story over at Green Market Report looking at and quantifying the shift among Colorado cannabis consumers from the strictly adult use market back towards the medical side of things. Colorado had a well-developed medical marijuana program years before adult use came on the scene and has seen the number of registered patients drop every year since adult use became legal. As Matt has it, though, Colorado shoppers are starting to move back towards medical shops as they offer cannabis for sale without the accompanying sales tax that comes with adult use. We should probably expect to see more consumer behavior being driven by price points given the state of the nation's economy. You guessed it, another good story to read in full. To Massachusetts we go for the next few stories, with the state's Cannabis Control Commission hashing out yesterday its third round of industry rulemaking, with a particular focus on the state's social equity programs. One of the big items up for discussion was a requirement that businesses that take advantage of the Economic Empowerment Program for underserved communities be majority owned by an economic empowerment participant. One of the entities helping make that call is the 25-person Cannabis Advisory Board, members of which chimed into the virtual meeting yesterday. The Cannabis Control Commission will next vote on the set of proposed regulations at its next meeting on September 24th. Sticking to Massachusetts for another headline, Grace Griffin over at Leafly looks at the state's two competing Democratic senatorial candidates with an eye on cannabis policy. As Grace has it, neither of the two candidates, sitting Senator Ed Markey and Representative Joseph Kennedy III, has a particular love for cannabis reform, even as both have moved their positions on the matter over the last year or so due to political necessity. If you have Massachusetts on your radar, you do not want to read this one. Double negative there. Dan Adams at the Boston Globe keeps things pegged to Massachusetts with a good update to a storyline we've been tracking involving a large number of cannabis vaporizer products that have been sitting in storage since they were quarantined by the state last year as part of its reaction to the vape health crisis. Dan is reporting that one company, Temescal Wellness, has chosen to not try to resell their quarantine products, which can legally be sold now as long as they are labeled as such, instead destroying around $2.6 million worth of inventory. That's a financial bite for sure, but given the potential dangers from long-stored vaporizers, seems like the smarter play. This next headline needs a quick disclosure as it concerns our sponsor Curaleaf, which just released its latest quarterly results. For the second fiscal quarter of 2020, Curaleaf reported revenues of $117 million, up 22% sequentially and 120% on the year. That stacked up on a gross profit of $42 million, an adjusted EBITDA of just under $28 million, and a net loss of $2 million, down from the $15 million net loss seen last quarter. New Cannabis Ventures has more if you need it. We end the day with a coronavirus pandemic-related public service announcement from comedian, writer, actor, and director Seth Rogen, who just tweeted advice to the world that it is far better to stay home to get high and watch movies than it is to go out and party. Rogen was answering the social media call of Canada's British Columbia Premier John Horgan, who is trying to get young people living in British Columbia to take the coronavirus a little more seriously. In response, Rogen tweeted, quote, "People of British Columbia, please do not go out to parties and barbecues and other large gatherings. The COVID is still out there. It's more fun to hang out alone and smoke weed and watch movies and TV shows anyway. Do that instead. Thank you." Unquote. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Natural Order Supply, and to our awesome Patreon listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the Patreon listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.